The new CEO didn't just fire me, he erased me. I stood in the boardroom of the company I had built from nothing, listening as Ethan Brooks called me dead weight in front of people who once shook my hand with respect. No one spoke, not even my own daughter. When he told security to escort me out, I didn't argue. I just asked him one question. "Have you ever read the Keller Legacy Trust?" He laughed. That was the moment I knew he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. And this time, I wasn't going to stop what was coming. If you've ever been dismissed like you meant nothing, I want you to stay with me on this one. Like this video, if you believe respect shouldn't have an expiration date. Subscribe if stories like this speak to you. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I read every single one. I didn't build Keller Industrial Systems in a boardroom. I built it in a garage that smelled like oil rust and fear. 43 years ago, I was a laid-off machinist with 2 weeks of savings and a wife who believed in me more than I believed in myself. Eleanor used to come home from her night shifts at the hospital with tired eyes and a quiet smile, placing her paycheck on the kitchen table like it was a promise we hadn't yet broken. "You build it," she would say. "I'll keep us alive until it stands on its own." I can still hear those words. Back then, Cleveland wasn't kind to men like me. Factories were closing, corners were being cut, and safety was something you only cared about after someone got hurt. I had spent years watching coworkers lose fingers jobs and dignity because someone higher up wanted to save a few dollars. So I built something different. The first product I designed wasn't glamorous. It was a control component meant to prevent machinery overload. Simple, practical, and most importantly, safe. I spent nights welding parts together with borrowed tools, testing every unit myself, refusing to sell anything I wouldn't trust with my own hands. Eleanor kept the lights on, literally. There were nights when we had to choose between groceries and electricity. Nights when she worked double shifts just so I could keep going. She never once asked me to stop. That's the part people forget about success. They see the company name. They see the building, the employees, the numbers. They don't see the sacrifices hidden underneath it. Keller Industrial Systems wasn't built on strategy. It was built on survival. And over time, it grew. Not because I was smarter than anyone else, but because I refused to cut corners where it mattered. Workers trusted us. Clients trusted us. And little by little, that trust turned into something bigger than I had ever imagined. We expanded from that garage into a small warehouse, then a plant, then another. Eventually, people started calling me a businessman. But I never stopped thinking like a worker. I knew every name on that factory floor. I knew whose kid was sick, who needed extra hours, who was one paycheck away from losing everything. That was the company I built. Not a brand, a responsibility. And through all of it, there was Laura, my daughter. When she was little, she used to sit on a stool in the corner of the garage watching me work. She would hand me tools like she was part of the operation, asking questions I didn't always know how to answer. "Why do you fix things for strangers?" she once asked. "Because someone has to," I told her. She used to look at me like I was a hero. For a long time, that was enough. But life doesn't stay simple. When Eleanor got sick, everything changed. Cancer doesn't just take a person. It takes time, energy, hope. It drains everything you have and asks for more. I tried to be in 2 places at once. At the hospital with my wife, at the company with my employees, at home with my daughter. I failed at all 3. The day Eleanor died, Laura stopped looking at me the same way. She never said it out loud, but I could feel it. In the silence, in the distance, in the way she stopped asking questions. To her, the company wasn't something we built together anymore. It was the thing that took her mother and then took me. I thought time would fix it. I was wrong. Laura grew up, went to college, studied business. She was smart. Smarter than I ever was. Sharp, confident, and ambitious in a way that made me proud and a little afraid. Because I could see something in her that I didn't recognize. Not cruelty, but distance. She didn't see the company the way I did. To her, it was an asset, a structure, something that could be optimized, streamlined, scaled. She wasn't wrong. She was just different. And then she met Ethan Brooks. I remember the first time I shook his hand. Firm grip, steady eyes. The kind of confidence that doesn't ask permission. He talked about growth, expansion, investor confidence. He saw numbers where I saw people. Laura admired that. At first I told myself it was a good thing, that maybe Ethan could take the company where I couldn't, that maybe this was the next step. That's how these things begin. Not with a mistake, with a compromise. When my heart gave out 8 years ago, it forced a decision I had been avoiding. The doctors called it a minor heart attack. There's nothing minor about realizing your time is limited. I stepped down as CEO, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. The board needed stability. The company needed leadership. And I needed to make sure everything I built wouldn't be destroyed the moment I was gone. That's when the Keller Legacy Trust was created. Not as a gift, as protection. Rebecca Lawson handled everything. She had worked with Eleanor and me for years, and she understood something most people didn't. The company wasn't just ours. It belonged to every person who had ever trusted us with their livelihood. The trust was designed to protect that, to protect the workers, the values, the foundation. Laura was named as a future beneficiary. Of course she was. She was my daughter. But the control wasn't simple. It couldn't be. Because I had seen what happened when companies were handed over without safeguards. I had seen families destroy what generations had built. I wasn't going to let that happen, even if it meant protecting the company from my own blood. At the time, I didn't think that would ever be necessary. I thought the trust would sit quietly in the background, never needing to be activated. I thought I had more time. I thought Laura would understand. And Ethan, I thought he would respect what came before him. Instead, 8 years later, I found myself standing outside my own company building, holding a leather briefcase that contained the only proof left of what Keller Industrial Systems was supposed to be. The glass doors behind me reflected a man I barely recognized. 72 years old, fired, erased, and for the first time since I started that company in a borrowed garage, I realized something I had refused to see before. This wasn't just about leadership. This wasn't just about business. Something inside my company had changed. Something dangerous. And the worst part, I had seen the warning signs. I had ignored them. 6 months ago, I started noticing numbers that didn't make sense. Transfers that didn't match operations. Decisions that felt rushed, aggressive, wrong. I asked questions. I was told not to worry. I stepped back. Because I trusted my daughter. Because I wanted to believe that the company I built couldn't be turned into something I no longer recognized. Standing there on the sidewalk watching employees walk past me without meeting my eyes, I finally understood the truth. I hadn't lost control of the company that morning. I had lost it a long time ago. I just hadn't admitted it yet. And now, it was too late to pretend this was just a misunderstanding. I should have known Laura wouldn't let it end quietly. She showed up at my house just after sunset, the same house she grew up in, the same front door Eleanor used to open every evening with that tired, gentle smile. For a moment, when I saw Laura standing there, I allowed myself to believe she had come as a daughter. I was wrong. She didn't hug me. She didn't even step fully inside. She stood in the doorway like she was visiting a stranger. Her arms folded, her posture, sharp, controlled, too controlled. "We need to talk," she said. "Not Dad. Not even Matthew. Just business." I stepped aside and let her in. The house still carried echoes of a life that felt distant now. The old photographs on the wall, Eleanor's favorite chair by the window, the faint scent of wood polish and time. Laura's eyes passed over all of it without stopping. She wasn't here for memories. She was here for something else. "I heard about what happened today," she said, walking into the living room as if she owned the place. I nodded slowly. "I assumed you would." There was a pause, and for a brief second, I thought I saw something flicker in her expression. Something uncertain. Something human. But it disappeared just as quickly as it came. "You shouldn't have made a scene," she said. "A scene?" I let that word sit between us. "I didn't make a scene," I replied quietly. "I was removed from my own company." She exhaled, frustrated, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Matthew, please don't start with that. It's not your company anymore." "Not your company." I had expected resistance. I hadn't expected this. I walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street, trying to steady something inside my chest that felt like it was cracking open. "When did that happen?" I asked. "When did it stop being mine?" "It stopped being yours when you stopped leading it," she said immediately. "When you stepped down, things changed. The company had to evolve." "Evolve," I repeated. She stepped closer, her voice tightening. "Yes, evolve. You built something strong, I won't deny that. But the market is different now. The expectations are different. Ethan understands that." There it was. Ethan. Always Ethan. "And you agree with him?" I asked. She didn't hesitate. Yes, that one word hit harder than anything that had happened in that boardroom. I turned to face her fully, now searching her eyes for something, anything that resembled the girl who used to sit in my garage and ask me why I fixed things for strangers. "I was fired today, Laura," I said slowly. "In front of people who used to trust me. In front of you." Her jaw tightened. "That's exactly why I'm here," she said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Clean, professional, neatly prepared. Of course it was. She handed it to me. "I need you to sign this." I didn't take it right away. "What is it?" I asked. "It's a retirement agreement," she said. "A formal one. It includes a compensation package, healthcare coverage, everything you need. You'll be taken care of. Taken care of." I finally took the folder and opened it. The language was precise, legal, cold. It outlined a generous annual payment, benefits, protections. And then I saw it. The clause. A quiet, carefully worded section buried halfway through the document. If I signed, I would relinquish any advisory rights, any ability to challenge corporate decisions, and any involvement in governance, past, present, or future, including anything connected to the Keller Legacy Trust. I looked up at her. "Who wrote this?" I asked. "Ethan's legal team," she said. "Of course they did. And you read it?" I pressed. "Yes. And you understood it." Her eyes flickered for just a second. "I understood enough," she said. "That was answer enough." I closed the folder slowly. "No," I said. She blinked. "No, I'm not signing this." The shift in her expression was immediate. Frustration turned into anger. "Matthew, don't do this," she snapped. "This is the best possible outcome for you. You walk away comfortably with dignity." "With dignity?" I interrupted, my voice sharper than I intended. "You stood there while I was humiliated, and now you're offering me dignity on paper." Her face hardened. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, I said quietly. You already did that. Silence filled the room heavy and suffocating. Then she said something that I wasn't prepared for. You're holding on to something that isn't yours anymore, she said. The company, the money, it should already be mine. There it was. Not fear, not confusion, expectation. You think this is about money? I asked. What else would it be about? She shot back. You've controlled everything for decades. Do you have any idea what that's been like? Living under decisions that were never mine? I stared at her, trying to understand how we had arrived here. I built that company to protect you, I said, to give you something stable, something real. And now you're using it to control me, she said coldly. No, I replied. I'm trying to protect it. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Protect it from what? Progress. I took a slow breath. From being sold, I said. That stopped her, just for a moment. Who told you that? She asked. I'm asking you, I said. Do you know about the Ohio plant? Her eyes shifted, not away, but enough. That was all I needed. You do, I said softly. It's a strategic decision, she said quickly. Some divisions aren't performing. That plant is the foundation of this company. I cut in. Hundreds of people work there. Families depend on it. And the rest of the company depends on staying competitive, she snapped back. You can't run a business based on emotion. Emotion? I almost smiled. That's exactly what I did, I said. And it worked. For a different time, she said. There it was again. Different time, different world, different values. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Look, Ethan is trying to position the company for a major transition. Investors are involved. There are timelines. We can't have interfering right now. Interfering. Look, Ethan is trying to position the company for a major transition. Investors are involved. There are timelines. We can't have you interfering right now. Interfering, I repeated. You still have influence, she said. People listen to you. That creates instability. Instability. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I asked the question that had been sitting quietly in the back of my mind since she walked through that door. Did you help them fire me? The silence that followed was louder than anything she could have said. Her lips parted slightly. Then she straightened. Yes, she said. No hesitation, no apology. I reviewed the documents, she continued. I agreed with the decision. It was necessary. Necessary. I felt something inside me settle. Not break, not explode. Settle. Like a truth finally finding its place. Then there's nothing more to discuss, I said quietly, placing the folder back on the table. Her expression shifted again, this time to something sharper. This isn't over, she said. No, I agreed. It's not. She turned toward the door, then paused. You're making a mistake, she said without looking back. So are you, I replied. She left without another word. The house fell silent again, but it wasn't the same silence as before. This one was heavier. Final. I stood there for a long time, staring at the folder she had left behind. My daughter. The one person I thought would never stand against me. And yet, as painful as that realization was, it wasn't the thing that kept me awake that night. It was something else, because buried in everything she said, There was a detail she hadn't meant to reveal. The urgency, the pressure, the need for my signature. Whatever Ethan was planning, it wasn't something that could wait. And that meant one thing. He was running out of time. I didn't sleep that night, not because of Laura, not even because of what Ethan had done. It was something deeper than that. Something quieter, but far more dangerous. It was the realization that everything I had tried to protect was already under attack. By morning, I knew exactly where I needed to go. Rebecca Lawson had been part of my life longer than most people in that company. She wasn't just a lawyer. She was the only person outside my family who truly understood what Keller Industrial Systems was meant to be. If there was still a way to stop this, she would know. Her office sat on the 12th floor of a downtown Cleveland building. Nothing flashy, nothing excessive, just glass steel and quiet professionalism. The kind of place where decisions were made without raising voices. When I walked in, she was already waiting for me. That told me everything I needed to know. "You saw it," I said. She nodded once. "I heard about it within an hour," she replied. Ethan didn't waste any time making it public. Of course he didn't. Public humiliation had been part of the plan. I sat across from her, placing my leather briefcase on the table between us. "They're moving faster than I expected," I said. Rebecca leaned back slightly, studying me in that calm, precise way she always had. "They're not just moving fast," she said. "They're trying to finish something." I frowned. "Finish what?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached for a folder on her desk and slid it toward me. "Take a look," she said. I opened it. At first, it didn't make sense. Numbers, transfers, corporate structures that looped through multiple entities. But the longer I looked, the clearer the pattern became. "They're moving assets," I said slowly. "Not just moving," Rebecca corrected. "Relocating." I looked up at her. "Explain." She folded her hands. Over the past 6 months, several of the company's most profitable divisions have been transferred into newly created entities. Shell companies, all connected to a private investment group. My stomach tightened. How much, I asked. "Enough to hollow out the core company," she said. "If they complete the process, Keller Industrial Systems will still exist, but it won't be what you built. It will be an empty structure holding debt and liability." I stared at the papers in front of me, my mind racing, and the workers I asked. Rebecca didn't soften her answer. "Many of them will lose their pensions, their jobs, everything." There it was. Not evolution, not strategy, extraction. "They're planning to sell," I said. "Yes," she confirmed, "but not in a way that benefits the company. This is about stripping value before the sale." I leaned back in my chair, the weight of it pressing down on me. "And Laura?" I asked quietly. Rebecca hesitated. "She's signed off on several preliminary approvals," she said. That hurt more than anything Ethan had done. "Does she understand what she's signing?" I asked. Rebecca's expression didn't change. "I don't know," she said, "but she's involved." I closed my eyes for a moment. This wasn't just business anymore. This was betrayal, layered on top of betrayal. When I opened them again, I pushed the folder aside and tapped the briefcase in front of me. "What about the trust?" I asked. Rebecca's eyes shifted slightly. Now we were getting to the part that mattered. "The Keller Legacy Trust is still intact," she said, "but it's under pressure." "From Ethan," I said, "and from Laura," she added. That silence again. Heavy, complicated. "Tell me everything," I said. Rebecca leaned forward slightly. "When you and Eleanor created the trust, you didn't just transfer shares," she said. You created a structure designed to protect the company from exactly this kind of situation. I remember, I said. Do you? She asked gently. Because there's a part of it you've never had to use. I felt something tighten in my chest. The clause, I said. She nodded. The Founder Protection Clause. Even hearing the name brought back memories. Eleanor sitting at the kitchen table, insisting on adding layers of protection I thought were unnecessary at the time. What exactly does it do? I asked, even though part of me already knew. Rebecca spoke carefully. If the founder is removed from the company under questionable circumstances without documented cause, or as part of an attempt to manipulate control, it triggers an automatic review of executive authority. I listened, every word landing heavier than the last. Certain powers held by the CEO can be suspended, she continued. Voting rights can be restricted. And in extreme cases, she paused. In extreme cases, control can be reassigned. To who? I asked. She met my eyes. Not to who, she said. To what? That wasn't the answer I expected. What do you mean? The trust doesn't prioritize individuals, she explained. It prioritizes purpose. The controlling authority can shift based on who or what is best positioned to protect the company's original mission. Eleanor. This was her doing. She had seen something I hadn't. And what triggers it? I asked. Rebecca didn't hesitate. Proof, she said. You need to demonstrate that your removal was connected to fraud, coercion, or a deliberate attempt to damage the company. I let out a slow breath. So being fired isn't enough. No, she said. It has to be part of something bigger. I nodded slowly. That made sense. Eleanor had never believed in emotional reactions, only in evidence. I reached down and opened the briefcase. Inside, everything was exactly where I had left it. Old documents, original stock certificates, handwritten notes in Eleanor's careful script, and beneath all of that, the files I had been collecting. I pulled them out one by one, placing them on the table. These are the irregular transfers I noticed, I said. The ones that didn't make sense? Rebecca leaned forward, scanning them quickly. You've been tracking this for months, she said. I didn't want to believe it, I admitted. But you suspected it, she said. Yes. She looked up at me again, something sharper now in her expression. This helps, she said. A lot. But it's not enough, I said. She shook her head. No, she agreed. It's not. There was a pause. Then she said the one thing I had been hoping not to hear. They're moving too quickly, she said. We're running out of time. How much time? I asked. She checked her watch, then looked back at me. 48 hours, she said. For what? For a board vote, she replied. Ethan has scheduled an emergency session. If it passes, the asset transfer becomes irreversible. 48 hours. After 43 years, it could all disappear in 2 days. I sat there staring at the papers, feeling something shift inside me. Not fear, not anger, something colder, more focused. What do we do? I asked. Rebecca didn't hesitate. We stop him, she said. How? She met my gaze directly. We prove what he's doing, she said, and we trigger the clause. I nodded slowly. That was the path, the only path. But as I gathered the documents back into my briefcase, one thought refused to leave me. Ethan wasn't acting alone, and Laura, whether she understood it or not, she was already part of this. I had spent most of my life walking factory floors, not as a visitor, not as a man in a suit, but as someone who understood what it meant to stand for 8 hours beside a machine that didn't care if you were tired, injured, or one mistake away from losing everything. So when Rebecca said we needed proof, I knew exactly where to go. the Ohio plant wasn't just another facility. It was the beginning. The first real building Keller Industrial Systems ever owned. The place where everything that followed had taken shape. And if Ethan was planning to dismantle the company, that was the place where the damage would be felt first. I didn't tell Rebecca I was going. Some things couldn't be handled from behind a desk. When I pulled into the parking lot, I noticed it immediately. The silence, not the normal kind, not the steady hum of machines, the distant clang of metal, the rhythm of work that had always filled the air. This silence was different, uncertain. People were standing in small groups outside the building talking in low voices. Some of them looked up when they saw me, their expressions shifting from confusion to recognition. And then something else. Respect. That part hadn't disappeared. Not completely. "Mr. Keller!" someone called out. I turned to see Denise Carter walking toward me. She had been with the company for over 20 years. Started on the line, worked her way up, and eventually became plant manager. If anyone understood what was happening here, I turned to see Denise Carter walking toward me. She had been with the company for over 20 years. Started on the line, worked her way up, and eventually became plant manager. If anyone understood what was happening here, it was her. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly as she reached me. "I figured you might say that," I replied. Her eyes moved around the parking lot before settling back on me. "Things are tense," she said, words spreading fast. "About the layoffs?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "They're calling it a restructuring," she said. "But yeah, people know what it really means." I nodded slowly. "How bad is it?" I asked. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Bad enough that some of the supervisors were told to start preparing closure reports," she said. "Nothing official yet, but it's coming." Closure. That word felt like a punch to the chest. "How many people?" I asked. "Hundreds," she said. "Maybe more if the other plants follow." I looked past her toward the building. 43 years, reduced to a line in a report. "Who gave the order?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Ethan," she said. "But the paperwork, some of it has Laura's signature on it." I looked past her toward the building. 43 years, reduced to a line in a report. "Who gave the order?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "Ethan," she said. "But the paperwork, some of it has Laura's signature on it." There it was again, that quiet confirmation. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay focused. "I need to see the reports," I said. Denise shook her head immediately. "I can't just hand those over," she said. "They're restricted. And after what happened yesterday, they're watching everything. I'm not asking you to break the rules," I said. She gave me a look that said she didn't believe me. "Then what are you asking?" she pressed. I took a breath. "I'm asking you to tell me the truth," I said. "Off the record." That made her pause. For a moment, I saw the conflict in her eyes. Loyalty to the company, and fear of what was happening to it. Then she nodded slightly. "Come inside," she said. The plant floor felt different. Machines were running, but slower. Conversations were shorter. People kept glancing toward offices, toward supervisors, toward anything that might signal what was coming next. Fear has a way of changing how a place feels, even before anything actually happens. Denise led me to a small office near the back. 5 minutes, she said. "That's all I can risk." "That's all I need," I replied. She closed the door behind us and pulled out a folder from a locked cabinet. "I wasn't supposed to keep copies," she said, but something didn't feel right. She handed them to me. I flipped through the pages quickly. Projected losses, asset valuations, transfer schedules, and then I saw it. A series of payments listed under external consulting. "Who's this?" I asked, pointing to the name. Denise leaned over. Brooks Strategic Advisors, she said. They've been billing the company for months. Have you worked with them? I asked. She shook her head. No one here has, she said. That's what made it strange. I studied the numbers again. They weren't just billing the company, they were draining it. How much, I asked. Millions, she said. Spread across different departments so it doesn't raise alarms. But it had. Just not loudly enough. Who owns it? I asked. Denise hesitated again. I looked into it, she said. It's registered under a holding company, but the trail leads back to Ethan's brother. I felt something cold settle in my chest. There it was. Not suspicion. Proof. This is embezzlement, I said quietly. Denise nodded. That's not all, she added. She flipped to another page. Safety inspections? She said. They've been delayed. Some of the equipment is overdue for maintenance. I looked at her sharply. By how long? Months, she said. We've been told to hold off until after the quarter closes. My hands tightened around the papers. That's no tightened around the papers. That's no tea, just unethical? I said. That's dangerous. I know, she said. But every time we push back, we're told it's temporary. That the CEO company needs to hit certain numbers. Just unethical. I said. That's dangerous. I know, she said. But every time we push back, we're told it's temporary. That the company needs to hit certain numbers. Numbers. Always numbers. At the expense of everything else. I closed the folder slowly. This is enough to raise serious questions, I said. But not enough to stop them. Denise replied. She was right. We needed more. Something undeniable. Something that connected everything. Before I could respond, the door opened suddenly. Both of us turned. Laura stood there. For a moment, no one spoke. Her eyes moved from me to the folder in my hands, to Denise. I should have known you'd come here, she said. Denise straightened immediately. I didn't authorize. She began. It's fine, Laura interrupted. You can go. Denise hesitated, looking at me. I gave her a small nod. She left the room without another word. The door closed, and suddenly, it was just the two of us. Again. You're making this worse, Laura said, her voice tight. No, I replied. I'm finally seeing it clearly. She stepped closer, her expression sharper than before. You don't understand what you're doing, she said. There are agreements in place. Timelines. You interfering like this could destroy everything. Everything I repeated. Or Ethan's plan. Her jaw clenched. You think this is about him? She said. It's not. This is about survival. The company needs to adapt, or it dies. By shutting down the plant, I asked. By cutting pensions. By moving money into shell companies. Her eyes flickered. Just for a second. That's not what's happening, she said. Then explain this, I said, holding up the folder. She didn't reach for it. She didn't even look at it. That's not your concern anymore, she said. There it was again. That line. That distance. That's where you're wrong, I said quietly. It's exactly my concern. She took a step back, shaking her head. You need to stop, she said, before this goes too far. It already has, I replied. Her voice dropped. Ethan is filing a lawsuit, she said, against you. I didn't react. For what? I asked. Theft of company documents, she said. Interference with corporate operations. I almost laughed. Convenient, I said. It's serious, she insisted. If you don't back down, this could ruin you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time since she walked into that house the night before, I saw something new. Not confidence, not anger, fear. You didn't know about this, did you? I asked softly. She froze. That was all the answer I needed. Whatever Ethan was planning, he wasn't telling her everything. And that meant one thing. She wasn't his partner. She was his tool. The courtroom didn't feel like justice. It felt like a performance. Clean lines, polished wood, quiet tension hanging in the air like something waiting to snap. I had spent my life building things with my hands, solving problems that could be seen and touched. This was different. This was about perception. And Ethan Brooks understood that better than most. He sat across from me in a tailored suit, calm, confident, almost relaxed, like a man who had already decided how this was going to end. Laura sat beside him, not looking at me, not once. Rebecca leaned slightly toward me. "Remember," she said quietly, "this isn't about emotion. It's about evidence." I nodded, even though everything inside me felt anything but calm. The judge entered. The room rose, then settled again into silence. Ethan's legal team moved first. Of course they did. They painted a picture that was almost impressive in its precision. An aging founder who refused to let go. A consultant overstepping his authority. A man interfering with corporate operations, taking confidential documents, disrupting a company already under pressure. They didn't shout. They didn't need to. Every word was measured, strategic, calculated to make me look like the problem. And for a moment, it almost worked, because I could feel it, the shift in the room. Doubt, uncertainty. Even the judge's expression tightened slightly as they spoke. Then Ethan took the stand. "I respected Matthew Keller," he said smoothly. "I still do. But respect doesn't mean allowing someone to jeopardize the future of the company. Future. Always the future." He spoke about modernization, growth, responsibility to shareholders. He made it sound reasonable, necessary. I made the decision to terminate his consulting role because his actions were creating instability. He continued. And instability in a company of this size can cost thousands of people their livelihoods. The irony of that statement didn't seem to touch him at all. Rebecca didn't interrupt. She let him speak, let him build his version of the truth, because she knew what came next. When it was Laura's turn, something inside me tightened. I didn't want to hear it, but I had to. She walked to the stand with steady steps. Her posture controlled, her face composed. Too composed. "State your name," the attorney said. "Laura Keller Brooks." The name felt heavier now. "And your relationship to the defendant." There was a pause, just long enough to matter. "Has my father," she said. "Was, not is." That was how it felt. "Do you believe his actions have been harmful to the company?" the attorney asked. Another pause. Then, "Yes." One word. Clear. Final. I closed my eyes, briefly steadying myself. She went on to describe the same narrative Ethan had built. Interference, resistance, outdated thinking. Each word landed exactly where it was meant to. And for a moment, I saw the story through the eyes of everyone else in that room. An old man who couldn't let go. A daughter trying to move forward. A CEO making difficult but necessary decisions. It was a clean story, a convincing one. Until Rebecca stood. She didn't rush, didn't raise her voice. She simply walked to the center of the room and placed a single folder on the table. "Your Honor," she said calmly. We would like to introduce evidence that this case is not about interference but about manipulation. That word changed everything. The room shifted. Ethan's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes tightened. Rebecca opened the folder. Over the past 6 months, she began millions of dollars have been transferred from Keller Industrial Systems into external entities operating under the name Brooks Strategic Advisors. A murmur moved through the room. Ethan's attorney stood immediately. "Objection! Sit down," the judge said firmly. "I want to hear this." Rebecca continued. "These entities are not independent consulting firms," she said. "They are directly connected to the defendant's family, specifically his brother." Now the room wasn't just tense, it was alert. Rebecca turned slightly, holding up a document. "These transfers were approved under executive authority," she said, "without full board disclosure." Ethan finally reacted. "Just a flicker. But I saw it." Rebecca didn't stop. "In addition, safety inspections at the Ohio plant were deliberately delayed," she said, "despite documented risks, and internal communications show pressure to suppress these reports until after a scheduled asset transfer." The judge leaned forward. "Are you alleging fraud?" he asked. "I'm stating that the evidence supports a pattern of financial manipulation and operational negligence," Rebecca replied. Then she paused and delivered the part that mattered most. And that Mr. Keller's removal from the company was not about performance, but about eliminating the one individual who could challenge these actions. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Rebecca turned toward me. "Which brings us to the Keller Legacy Trust," she said. Ethan's attorney stood again. "Your Honor, sit down," the judge repeated. Rebecca's voice remained calm. "The trust includes a provision known as the Founder Protection Clause," she said. "It is designed to prevent exactly this scenario." She walked toward the bench. "If the founder is removed under conditions that suggest manipulation, fraud, or intent to damage the company, the trust allows for immediate review and potential suspension of executive authority." The judge looked down at the documents in front of him. "And do you believe those conditions have been met?" he asked. Rebecca didn't hesitate. "Yes." Ethan leaned forward now. "This is an overreach," he said. "A misinterpretation of legal language." "It's not a misinterpretation," Rebecca cut in. "It's a safeguard, one that was put in place long before you ever entered this company." For the first time, Ethan looked uncertain, just for a second, but it was enough. The judge raised a hand. "I will review the evidence," he said. "In the meantime, I am issuing a temporary injunction on all major asset transfers until this matter is resolved." A collective breath moved through the room. Not victory, not yet, but not defeat either. Ethan's jaw tightened. "This is going to damage the company," he said. Rebecca didn't even look at him. "No," she said. "What you were doing would have destroyed it." Laura sat frozen. Her eyes moved between the documents, the judge, and finally, me. For the first time since this began. She looked unsure, really unsure. And in that moment, I understood something I hadn't allowed myself to see before. She hadn't been fighting me, not entirely. She had been following a version of the truth. That was never hers to begin with. The courtroom emptied slower than I expected. People didn't rush out. They lingered, whispered, watched. Because something had shifted. Not decided, not resolved, but exposed. And once the truth starts showing cracks, people don't look away anymore. I stayed seated for a moment after the judge left my hands resting on the edge of the table, the weight of everything pressing down in a way that felt almost physical. 43 years, reduced to a legal argument, and yet somehow still standing. Rebecca placed a hand lightly on the table. "This isn't over?" she said. "I know," I replied. She studied me for a moment. "They're going to escalate," she continued. "Ethan won't back down now. He can't. Because of the money," I said. "Because of exposure," she corrected. "If what we've presented is proven this isn't just corporate misconduct, it becomes criminal." I nodded slowly. "And Laura?" I asked. Rebecca hesitated. "She's in a difficult position," she said carefully. I almost smiled. That's one way to put it. Before she could respond, I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't have to turn to know who it was. "Laura." She stopped a few feet away. Close enough to speak, far enough to keep distance. Rebecca glanced at me. "I'll give you a moment," she said, gathering her files and stepping away. And just like that, it was the two of us again. But this time, something was different. She wasn't composed anymore. Not completely. Her posture was still controlled, but her eyes were searching. "You didn't tell me," she said. No greeting, no softness, just that. I turned slightly in my seat facing her. "About what I asked." Her voice tightened. "About the trust," she said. "About the clause. About all of this." I studied her for a long moment. "I did tell you," I said, quietly. "Years ago." Her expression shifted. "That's not the same," she said. "You never explained it like this." "You never asked," I replied. That landed harder than I expected. She looked away for a moment, her jaw tightening. Then, "Ethan says this is a tactic," she said. "A way to scare the board. That the evidence won't hold up." "Of course he did. And you believe him?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. That hesitation, that was new. "I believed him before," she admitted. I thought he was doing what needed to be done." "And now?" I asked. She exhaled slowly. "I don't know." That was the first honest thing she had said to me in days. Maybe longer. I stood up slowly, feeling the stiffness in my joints, the weight of age that I had ignored for too long. "Do you know what the hardest part of this is?" I asked. She looked at me guarded. "I thought it would be Ethan," I continued. "I thought it would be the board. The lawyers, the system." I paused. "But it's you." Her expression cracked. Just slightly. "I didn't do this," she said quickly. "I didn't plan any of this." "I know," I said. That stopped her. "You know," she asked. "Yes," I said. "That's the problem." She stared at me confused. "What does that mean?" "It means you didn't lead this," I said. "You followed it." Her face hardened again. "That's not fair," she snapped. "You have no idea what I've had to deal with. The pressure, the expectations. I do. I cut in quietly. I just didn't expect you to let someone else define them for you." That hit something. I could see it. The anger, the defensiveness, and underneath it, something else. "You think this is simple?" she said. "You think I wanted to stand there and say those things about you?" "No," I said. "But you did." Silence. Heavy. Then she said something I wasn't prepared for. "He told me you were losing control," she said. "That you were making decisions based on emotion. That you were risking the company." I didn't react. I just listened. "He showed me reports," she continued. "Numbers that didn't make sense. He said if we didn't act quickly, everything could collapse. And you trusted him," I said. "Yes," she admitted. "More than me, he showed me reports," she continued. "Numbers that didn't make sense. He said if we didn't act quickly, everything could collapse. And you trusted him, I said. Yes, she admitted. More than me, I added. Her eyes dropped. I thought you were holding on too tightly, she said softly. I thought maybe you couldn't see the bigger picture anymore. I let that sit for a moment. Then I asked the question that mattered. And now I said. She didn't answer immediately. Her hands tightened slightly at her sides. I saw the documents, she said finally. The ones your lawyer presented, and I pressed. Her voice lowered. They weren't what I expected. There it was, the crack. Small, but real. He didn't tell you about the transfers, did he? I asked. She shook her head slowly. No, she said. Or the safety delays. Another shake. No. I stepped closer, just enough to close the distance without overwhelming her. He's not building the future of this company, I said quietly. He's dismantling it. Her breathing shifted, slightly faster. He said, shifted. Slightly faster. He said the plant wasn't profitable, she said. He said what you needed to hear, I replied. She looked up at me, now really looked. For the first time since all of this began, she wasn't seeing me as an obstacle. She was seeing me as the plant wasn't profitable, she said. He said what you needed to hear, I replied. She looked up at me, now really looked, for the first time since all of this began. She wasn't seeing me as an obstacle. She was seeing me as something else, someone who might be right. I signed those approvals, she whispered, the words barely audible. But you didn't understand them? I said. No, she admitted. The weight of that realization settled between us. And for a moment, we weren't in a courtroom. We weren't on opposite sides. We were just a father and a daughter, standing in the aftermath of something neither of us fully understood until it was too late. What happens now? She asked. That question carried everything. Fear, guilt, uncertainty, hope. I took a slow breath. Now, I said, you decide who you are in this. She frowned slightly. I don't understand. You have a choice, I said. You can stand with him, or you can stand with the truth. Her eyes filled with conflict. It's not that simple, she said. It never is, I replied. But it's still a choice. She looked down again, her mind racing. If I go against him, she began, then stopped. You'll lose what you think you have, I said. And if I don't, she asked, you'll lose something much harder to get back. She didn't ask what. She already knew. There was a long silence. Then finally, I need time, she said. I nodded. You don't have much, I replied. She gave a small, almost bitter smile. That seems to be a theme lately. For a moment I thought she might say something else. Apologize. Explain. But she didn't. She just turned and walked away. And this time, I didn't stop her. Because for the first time, this wasn't about me convincing her. It was about her seeing the truth for herself and deciding what to do with it. The final hearing didn't feel like a battle. It felt like an ending. Not the kind where everything explodes at once, but the kind where the truth settles slowly, piece by piece, until there's nothing left to argue. Ethan still walked in like he owned the room. Same suit, same confidence. But it wasn't as clean this time. There was tension in the way he moved, a sharpness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Because he knew. He knew the story he had built was starting to fall apart. I sat beside Rebecca again, my hands steady, my mind clearer than it had been in weeks. Across the room, Laura sat alone. Not beside Ethan, not beside his legal team, alone. That told me everything before a single word was spoken. Rebecca noticed it too. She made her choice, she said quietly. I didn't respond. Not yet. The judge entered and the room settled into silence. This court has reviewed the submitted evidence, he began, and we will proceed with final testimony before a ruling is issued. Ethan's attorney stood first. They tried to recover, tried to reshape the narrative. They argued that the transfers were strategic, that the consulting fees were justified, that the founder clause was being misused as a weapon. It was polished, professional, but it lacked something now, credibility. Because once doubt enters a story like that, it doesn't leave. Then Rebecca stood. She didn't rush, didn't dramatize. She simply walked forward and placed one final document on the table. Your Honor, she said, before we conclude, there is one additional piece of evidence we would like to present. The judge nodded. Proceed. Rebecca turned slightly. Miss Keller, she said. The room shifted. Laura stood, slowly. Every eye followed her as she walked to the stand. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just watched. Because whatever happened next, it had to come from her. She took the oath, her hands steady, her face pale but composed. State your name, the judge said. Laura Keller Brooks, she replied. A pause. Then Rebecca asked the first question. Ms. Keller, have you had the opportunity to review the financial records presented in this case? Yes, Laura said. And do you recognize the signatures on the approval documents for the asset transfers? Yes. Are those your signatures? Another pause. Longer this time. Yes, she said. The room was completely silent now. Rebecca stepped closer. When you signed those documents, did you have full knowledge of the ownership structure of Brooks Strategic Advisors? Laura's eyes flickered. No, she said. Were you informed that those entities were directly connected to Mr. Brooks' family? No. Ethan shifted in his seat, just slightly, but it was enough. Rebecca didn't look at him. She kept her focus on Laura. Ms. Keller, were you aware that safety inspections at the Ohio plant had been delayed under executive instruction? Laura swallowed. No. And if you had known that these actions could result in financial harm to employees or physical risk to workers, would you have approved them? Laura's voice dropped. No. Rebecca let the silence sit for a moment. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Ms. Keller, based on what you now know, do you believe your father's removal from the company was justified? The room held its breath. Laura didn't answer immediately. Her eyes moved, just for a second, toward me, then back to Rebecca. No, she said. Clear, firm, final. Something inside me shifted. Not victory. Something else. Something quieter. Rebecca nodded once. No further questions. Ethan's attorney stood quickly. Ms. Keller, he said, his tone sharper now. Isn't it true that your father has been resistant to change for years? Laura didn't flinch. He has been cautious, she said. There's a difference. And isn't it also true that you personally supported the strategic direction of the company prior to this dispute? Yes, she said. Then what changed? He pressed. Laura took a breath. The truth, she said. That was it. No argument, no defense, just truth. The attorney hesitated. For the first time, he didn't have a response ready. No further questions, he said, sitting down. The judge leaned back, reviewing his notes. The room felt different now. Lighter, clearer, like something heavy had finally been lifted. After a moment, the judge spoke. This case raises serious concerns regarding the conduct of executive leadership within Keller Industrial Systems, he said. He looked directly at Ethan. The evidence presented demonstrates a pattern of undisclosed financial transfers, conflicts of interest, and decisions that may have placed both the company and its employees at risk. Ethan's expression didn't change, but his hands tightened slightly on the table. Furthermore, the judge continued, the removal of Mr. Keller appears to have been directly connected to efforts to prevent scrutiny of these actions. He paused. The court therefore finds sufficient grounds to invoke the Founder Protection Clause of the Keller Legacy Trust. A quiet ripple moved through the room. Not loud, but undeniable. Effective immediately, the judge said executive authority under Mr. Brooks is suspended pending further investigation. All asset transfers are frozen. Ethan leaned forward. Sit down, the judge said firmly. Ethan didn't speak again. The court will also recommend a full financial audit and refer this matter for potential criminal review, the judge added. Then finally, Mr. Keller, he said, looking at me, control of the company will revert temporarily to the trust structure until a final determination is made. It was over. Not completely, but enough. Enough to stop the damage. Enough to protect what mattered. The gavel struck, and just like that, 43 years of work didn't end in silence. They ended in truth. Outside the courtroom, the air felt different. Lighter, clearer. Like something had finally been set right. Rebecca shook my hand. You did it, she said. No, I replied, glancing toward the courthouse doors. We did. She smiled slightly. Take care of what you built, she said. That's what matters now. I nodded. I will. She left her steps calm, certain. And then there was Laura, standing a few feet away. Not hiding, not avoiding, waiting. I walked toward her slowly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she said it. I'm sorry. 2 words. Simple, but heavier than anything else she could have said. I looked at her, really looked. And for the first time in a long time, I saw my daughter again. Not the executive, not the decision maker. Just her. You made a mistake, I said. Her eyes filled slightly. I know, but you fixed it, I added. She shook her head. Not completely. No, I agreed. But you started. There was a long pause. Then she asked, Is it too late, that question? It wasn't about the company. It wasn't about the case. It was about us. I took a slow breath. No, I said. Not if we're willing to rebuild. She nodded, tears finally slipping free. I want to, she said. So do I. And for the first time since all of this began, we stood there, not as opponents, but as family. I went back to the plant a week later, not as a consultant, not as a relic, but as something else, a reminder of what this company was supposed to be. The machines were running again. The noise was back, the rhythm, the life. People nodded as I walked through. Some smiled, some just watched. But they knew, they all knew. This place wasn't just a business. It never had been. It was a promise. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone break it. After everything that happened, I realized something I should have understood a long time ago. Building something is only half the journey. Protecting it, that's the real test. Not just from strangers, but from the people you trust the most. Because sometimes betrayal doesn't come from hatred. It comes from misunderstanding. from fear, from believing the wrong voice at the wrong time. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not to destroy those who hurt you, but to give them a chance to see the truth and choose differently. If you've ever been hurt by someone you trusted or had to make a choice that changed everything, I'd love to hear your story. Leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. And if this story meant something to you, don't forget to like and subscribe, because sometimes the stories we share are the ones that help us heal.